J.D. Vance brings a wrecking ball to the diplomatic gathering in Munich. Vance's fiery speech at the Munich Security Conference, part of the multi-day debut on the world stage as U.S. Vice President, dominated the marathon high-level gabfest among hundreds of top foreign dignitaries and national security elites. "No one is talking about anything else," said a senior Eastern European official. Vance railed against establishment politics, urged Europe to curb migration, and compared EU leaders to Soviet commissars because they had criticized far-right leaders. The tongue-lashing cemented fears among Europe's security elites that the United States was diverging from the transatlantic status quo at a rapid pace, and there was little they could do to stop it. "This is the new United States, and it's clear the old Europe has been used for decades is gone," said one former senior U.S. diplomat. "It could be this is the one wake-up call that actually wakes Europe up." Politico spoke to 14 conference attendees at the forum, several of whom were granted anonymity, to discuss their reactions to Vance's speech. Candidly, many reacted with a mixture of shock and anger. From inside an overflown room, the main conference hall was jam-packed. Attendees laughed sardonically while Vance mentioned shared values. Not once, but twice, people in the room said, "That was some weird shit," quoting George W. Bush's reaction to Trump's first inauguration speech in 2017. "That went for the professional diplomats too. This is all so insane and worrying," said a German official. "I was aghast," said a former House Democratic staffer attending the conference. "It's not Russia influencing your elections, you are." He was blaming the victim. What is going on? "I had my mouth open in a room full of people with their mouth open," he said. "That was bad." When asked by reporters about Vance's speech, Trump said it was a very good speech, actually very brilliant. Vance's office did not respond to requests for comment. Aiming at a domestic audience, others conceded that Vance's real audience was not in Munich, but rather the MAGA base back home and other populist groups in Europe, hungry to oust establishment parties in further future elections. Even among the stunned audience at his speech in Munich, some European officials are welcoming the sharp jolt the MAGA world delivered to the continent. They believe shocks to the system, like Vance's speech and Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth's suggestion that the U.S. could look to reduce military presence in Europe, will finally force Europe to realize it cannot rely on the United States in the same way it has in the past decades. While the first Trump term was seen almost as an accident in many capitals, the second is an indication that the earth has irrevocably shifted under Europe's feet. The response, according to many Eastern European officials closer to Russia's border, should be to make bold strides in military investments after years of big talk and far too little action. "How nervous I am about the U.S. right now. Honestly, I'm worried about Europe," said Gabrielius Landsbergis, former Lithuanian foreign minister. He said, "We cannot stay focused solely on what is happening in the U.S., what President Trump or others on his team have said. We are 3 steps behind anyway. The question is, what are we going to do about this?" One official from the Eastern European country expressed support for much of Vance's speech, but said he should have been clear here that Russia is not a conservative model to follow. Spend more on defense? Top Republican lawmakers were blunt about the need for Europe to step up. Hopefully the Europeans will recognize that their free ride on the coattails of America has come to an end. Republican Senator John Cornyn of Texas said after Vance's speech, "They've had it pretty good, and those days are over." Vance's speech also underscores how European officials cannot paper over the chasm with Trump's Washington, even as they try to balance keeping the NATO alliance strong while navigating the president's efforts to broker a peace deal in Ukraine. Top European officials who may have come into the weekend ready to be careful and diplomatic with the Americans took the gloves off after Vance's speech. If I understand him correctly, he's comparing parts of Europe with authoritarian regimes. This is not acceptable, German Defense Minister Boris Pistorius said. Others felt Vance's assumptions were downright wrong. There was a hypothesis in the speech that the voices of Europeans and Democrats are not allowed to speak and are not being represented, Michael Maffall, former U.S. ambassador to Russia, said on stage at the political pub after Vance's speech. The people that have his views in Europe are represented in all kinds of parliaments all across the continent. They're competing in elections in this country 9 days. And this is by Daisha Burns on Politico, and it's on DNYUZ. Please leave your comments, and thank you for your support. Please support my Patreon account. The daily posts are 5 videos daily, and they are totally different from what I have on my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for your support and that you find all my content so interesting. You'll find the Patreon account details in the description box below.